Hi, thanks for watching Liberty Awakened. We had a crazy week with the election. I'm going to give you kind of my updates on everything that's going on, what I think is going to happen from here on out, address all the issues involving election fraud and what's going on with the Senate races and kind of just what I see happening next. So just going to dive right into it because we don't have a lot of time and there's a lot to get to. Okay, so my first reaction to election night was to breathe a huge sigh of relief because it began to look increasingly likely, still does look very likely, that the Republicans will maintain their majority in the Senate, although we're not out of the woods on that yet, as I'll explain in a minute. But I just can't even tell you how relieved I was at that because, prior to this election, as you may know, the Democrats have been talking about how they want to pretty much abolish the checks and balances in the Constitution that protect the rights of a minority. So for instance, they are talking about doing things or promise to do things like pack the Supreme Court, abolish the Senate filibuster, admit DC and Puerto Rico as states, and legalize tens of millions of illegal immigrants. And the goal is to establish a permanent one-party Democrat rule, which I think we really should all agree that's a bad thing. Like I wouldn't want a permanent Republican majority rule. I mean, I think there should be a diversity of ideas, a debate of ideas, because I think I do agree with so many, mostly Republican views. I don't think that one party rule is a good thing ever. And I think we should all agree about that. And so what they were wanting to do was to, first pack the Supreme Court. They'd add 6 extreme leftist judges that would just approve anything the Democrats want to do, such as removing the Second Amendment, your right to bear arms, forcing Christians to do things against their beliefs, outlawing certain aspects of Christianity as hate speech, all green lighting, any kind of socialist agenda takeover or things like that. So thank God they will not be able to do that. They will not be able to pack the court without a Senate majority. They also wanted to do things like pass the Equality Act, which the Supreme Court. That's why they need the Supreme Court for that as well, because that would basically force churches to hire, for instance, LGBTQ pastors that would teach things that don't line up with biblical Christianity, or force, for instance, abortion clinics adoption agencies to place children with homosexual couples, or that Colorado baker's case where a Christian business, they're trying to force them to bake a cake for a same-sex couple. So just, for getting control of the court to outlaw different aspects of Christianity or make it so that churches can basically be sued out of existence for taking a stand for biblical beliefs. Other things they wanted to do, and that's what admitting DC and Puerto Rico is about, just to gain an additional 4 Senate votes so that the Democrats can have a permanent Senate majority, getting those electoral college votes so that a Republican can never be elected president again, and then legalizing tens of millions of illegal immigrants because they believe those people are going to vote Democrat. Which I'm not sure that's a safe bet after this last election if you look at the Florida results. But anyway, that's kind of what they want to do. And, they want to get rid of capitalism. And that's what the Green New Deal is about. I've talked about this before, but, you can't just eliminate the whole oil industry right now. It's that wind and solar are not ready. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go over to PragerU and watch this video called What's Wrong with Wind and Solar. And it will show you it actually harms the environment way more because of the mining that's required, the manufacturing that's required to get these solar and wind farms up and running, and they don't even really last more than a couple decades. And so it's not the Green New Deal is not about environmentalism, y'all. It's about destroying capitalism. But I don't need to go into all that on this video because I know I want to get to talking about the election. So it's a huge relief that if the Republicans hold the Senate majority, they will not be able to do all those things. And what needs to happen, you'll need to focus your attention on the Georgia runoff race, which takes place January 3rd. If you have money to donate to those candidates, because that will be probably the most contested Senate race in history. Because if the Democrats win, I think either of those 2 races, they're going to have a majority in the Senate. Tom Tillis also needs to hold on to his lead in North Carolina. And I'm honestly not convinced John James lost in Michigan. I'd like to see a recount happen there and kind of some instances of election fraud maybe addressed. But let's just all keep praying that the Republicans hold the Senate, because that is very, very important. But I was also encouraged that the Republicans picked up a lot of seats in the House of Representatives. Nobody saw that coming. They picked up a ton of seats in state legislatures nationwide, even picked up a governorship, and didn't lose any of those seats, really. So that means the Republicans will be, we just had a census, so they'll be redrawing all these voting districts. The Republicans will be in control of that in most states, which means the Republicans will be set up quite nicely for the to retake the House of Representatives in 2022. So that is a very good thing. So now I'm going to get to what's going on with the presidential race. Why has Joe Biden been declared the winner? What's going on with all these shenanigans we've been hearing about. Okay, so yesterday, the media declared that Joe Biden has won this election, that it's over, that he's the president-elect, and that if you are a Trump supporter who believes there are election irregularities and instances of fraud that need to be looked into, that you're a conspiracy theorist, that you're opposed to democracy. And I just want to say that is bullcrap. That's bullcrap, especially coming from this media. First, they don't get to declare who the winner is. The Electoral College does. The Electoral College doesn't meet till December 14th. There's a lot that can happen in the courts between now and then that could actually swing this election. I'm not saying it's going to, but we need to get to the bottom of it. And I find it extremely hypocritical that these are the same people who, after Donald Trump won in 2016, all we heard from them for 3 years was that Russia stole this election for Donald Trump and that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. And that led to us spending 3 years and $32 million on the Russia investigation that turned up zero evidence of collusion. And then later it turns out that Barack Obama's CIA actually reported to him before this whole Russia collusion thing even started that the Hillary Clinton campaign had made up Russia collusion to distract from the fact that she had done this illegal email server to handle highly classified emails, which, believe it or not, is a pretty serious crime. I don't really have the time to dive into that, but it is a very serious crime that people have gone to prison for doing far less. So despite the fact that Obama knew it, other people in his administration knew it was completely made up, they still let this $32 million investigation go on for 3 years. It was backed by the media, cheered on by the media, and now they're telling us, Trump supporters who see some irregularities in these voting results, that you need to shut up or you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, you know what? I'm not going to shut up. I want to see, in all likelihood, Joe Biden may have legitimately won this election, but I just want to know that the votes were counted fairly. Why is that such a crazy thing? So what am I talking about with these instances of voter fraud? I actually put together a montage video of a lot of these, the videos that are out there showing instances of voter fraud. The big ones that I don't really have much time left. So just to summarize, you have, like in Pennsylvania, for instance, there was a Supreme Court order saying the Trump poll watchers were supposed to be allowed into the polls to observe the vote counting and just make sure it's being done fairly. That's not a lot to ask. That's common sense. But you know what? They presented the court order and they were still turned away. You had the same thing in Detroit where, they're even trying to watch through the glass how they're counting it, and they put up cardboard so that you couldn't even see. And you have videos of these poll workers just filling in bubbles. Presumably they got ballots that weren't filled in correctly, couldn't go through the computer, so then they got to change it. But how do you know they're not changing votes illegally? You have postal workers going on record with affidavits, and Project Veritas has been all over this, interviewing these postal workers that are saying their supervisors are telling them, bring in the mail-in ballots that have been collected after Election Day, give them to your supervisor so that they can backdate them to November 3rd so that they'll be counted as votes, even though they didn't come in enough time. You got tons of dead people voting in Wisconsin and Michigan. You got these computer glitches that were giving, thousands and thousands of votes from Trump to Biden. And it's just a mess. Arizona, you got the Sharpie incident, lots of stuff going on. Despite what the media is telling you, there is a lot that can happen between now and and December 14th when the Electoral College meets. These margins are so razor thin that if some of these votes are invalidated, it could change the results of the election. So let's just take a deep breath, sit back, let the courts work this out, pray, donate to the Trump legal team, and let's just see what happens.